Wonderful. Hey, welcome, folks. I'm Jason Loewith, Artistic Director of Olney Theater Center. For those of you outside the DMV watching, OTC is an award-winning professional regional theater in Maryland, just over the DC line, producing a diverse range of plays and musicals year-round on our 3-theater, 14-acre campus. We started our streaming Saturday program early on as a response to the pandemic when we gathered local artistic directors to talk about what theater after the crisis would look like. The response and viewership was so strong, we decided to create it as a series with a variety of artists and thought leaders to tell us what post-pandemic theater will be. And we decided to name it Artists Envision the Future. We conclude the series today with a conversation about a project we've been planning at OTC for some time, and which, in the light of the pandemic, has attained an even deeper level of meaning. It's the world premiere of a new musical called AD16. And we're talking today with the creators about why they wrote the show and what they hope will impact and what they hope it will do to impact our changed world when we open in February 2021. I'm proud to briefly introduce these three amazing folks. They're also extremely nice people, which is odd in the business. We're so lucky to have them join us on this journey. I'm introducing them alphabetically because they're all so egocentric. No, they're not at all. All right, alphabetically, in a very short space of time, director Stephen Brackett has rocketed to the top ranks of the most sought-after directors for new works, particularly musicals in this country. In addition to having 2 new musicals on Broadway last year, and just one is a triumph, Be More Chill and Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, he also directed off-Broadway's A Strange Loop, which was honored with the Pulitzer Prize for Drama last month and got him 2 major awards just, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, the Drama Desk Award and the Outer Critics Circle Award for Outstanding Director. He will be helming our production, and he'll be helming A Strange Loop, God willing, and The Creek Don't Rise next year at Woolly Mammoth right here in the DMV. In the short time we've been working together, I've been in awe of his collaborative genius, his surefire dramaturgical instincts, his generosity towards every artist in the room, and of course, his talents for the creative teams that bring new work to such magical life on stage. Yes, now you owe me everything, Stephen.
That's so nice.
All right, I'm going to try to be the same with book writer Becca Brunsteader. She is one of the country's most prolific and multi-talented writers, creating work for stage, the big and small screens, and a blog that cheers, inspires, and makes me think and laugh and sometimes cry every time I look at it. That's www.beccabrunsteader.com. It's really that good. She's also one of the nicest, most genuine folks I've worked with in the biz. Civilians will know her best as a co-producer of the hit television show This Is Us, but in the theater industry, she walks on water thanks to her impactful work that has been widely produced across the country, most recently and importantly, Cake. In whatever medium you see her work, you'll know Becca's voice by its wicked wit, its political commitment, and its generous heart. Speaking of generous hearts, composer and lyricist Cinco Paul, with his writing partner Candorio, introduced the world to Felonious Gru, the Despicable Me supervillain who is transformed through the love of the 3 little girls he adopts. So if you've got a Minion plushie at home, or if in fact Cinco has a Minion plushie at home, go ahead, you can show us.
What? You mean this? I just happen to have one.
He brings it everywhere. It's very weird. Very weird.
So if you have a Minion or you're playing Minion Mania on your iPad, you've got a Cinco at your house, which is lucky because Cinco, like Becca and Stephen, are incredibly talented and incredibly nice. Known for a lot more than the Minions on film, responsible for The Secret Life of Pets, The Lorax, Horton Hears a Who on stage, best known for his musical Bubble Boy, that is until AD16. You can recognize Cinco's writing by many of the same qualities, which is probably why he and Becca are such a good pair for the show. Redemption is the strain that runs through all their work, taking flawed characters and putting them on a journey to self-knowledge and deliverance. A super segue into what we're talking about. And now I have no more compliments, just questions. Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hi.
Hi.
No problem.
Excited to be here.
Yeah.
Well, we are really, really happy to have you, and we'll be especially happy to have you in Maryland when we get started in rehearsal. So, Cinco, this story was your idea. Where did this story come from in your very fertile brain?
Well, after Bubble Boy, I was thinking of, I really wanted to write another musical to see if I could do another one. And I really wanted to do one with a female lead. a female protagonist. I felt strongly about that, and I started to think about historical figures when they were younger, and it just led me to Jesus. But then I thought, like, Jesus as a teenager, I really wanted a female protagonist. So I thought, like, oh, what if Mary Magdalene lived next door and had a crush on him? Of course she would. And that sort of started it all. And so then as soon as I got home, I sat down and wrote the song Perfect. Kind of, I always try to write one song as like to test the concept, you know, to see if it'll work. And it felt right to me. And so I really liked just like, it's filled with, it's rich territory, I guess. You know, I'm a believer. I know the Bible, you know, I know the New Testament really well. And I loved the idea of it being a way to explore what it means to be someone's neighbor. Who is my neighbor? You know, as the parable of the Good Samaritan asks, and just to have a lot of fun with all the biblical stories that we know. And so that was really the genesis, so to speak, of it. And I started to try to write it on my own, and then I realized that was a mistake. And then I went looking for a book writer, and a friend mentioned Becca Brunsteader. And I quickly got one of her plays called Be a Good Little Widow. And I read it and I laughed.
Stephen directed, Full Circle.
Full Circle. Stephen directed it. And I laughed all the way through, and I was in tears at the end. And I thought, like, her voice would be perfect for this. And I sent her an email that night, and she responded, and the rest, as they say, is history.
What was that first meeting like? I've never asked it. We've done, for those of you watching, we have done like about 4 or 5 of these and some variation in different cities around the country. But I've never asked that question. What was put me as a fly on the wall. What was the meeting like? You were having a nice glass of banana juice, and
was it Cinco?
It was a Rockwell table. Yeah. So we met at there's this place in LA called Rockwell Table and Stage, which is sort of a cabaret place. They'd have a lot of musical theater, and they were doing a showcase of new musical theater, and they had allowed me to present like 4 songs that I'd written for 8016. And so I invited Bekah to come to that. And that's where we actually first met in person. We'd exchanged a couple of emails. I think in your very first email to me, you said, wow, this is crazy because I wrote a short play about teenage Jesus and his brother. This feels like kismet. And so that was where we first met. Just I was playing piano for all the singers, but we had a little chance to connect.
And I think y'all did Perfect, and That Boy, which is like this wonderful song where the Nazarene girls are sort of this like Mean Girls Greek chorus who are trying to tear Mary down. And my feeling, just watching those 2 songs, I think I was like, I have to do this. There's literally no question. And, you know, when you're a person, as all 3 of us are, who like balance a lot of projects, you kind of get to the point where you're like, I'm only going to do things if I feel like I can't be alive if I don't do this project, you know? And that's how I felt after hearing the music. And when I got the email, it was very strange because I think I had just written that short play, actually, because I was working on, I actually used to do this. Stephen and I did something like Keen Teens, right, Stephen? Like, I've done a number of like, I've written plays for a number of programs for teenage actors in particular. And I had just written one called Jacob the Less, I think, about Jesus's younger brother and Jesus inventing the chair with his carpentry shop. And I think I'd just written it like a week or 2 before. So it felt very serendipitous, which is probably why I emailed you back so eagerly.
Yeah, and I think you said, I just saw Secret Life of Pets last night or something.
I just watched it.
So there we go.
Yeah.
So I
didn't do much deliberating. I was like, yeah, I'll do this.
Those are the best kinds of deliberations that go like that. Although now I know where the chair scene came from, because the chair scene was in the first draft of the play that I saw. And It wasn't in the last draft. Maybe it'll make a comeback.
You never know.
I mean, there was a whole song called "This Chair"
Yeah.
that is on the cutting room floor currently, and probably should stay there.
I just really like I'll just keep my short play about it, but I just really like the concept that Jesus invented chairs, and everyone was like, "Why do you need a chair? You sit on the ground." Like, what is wrong with you? Like, get a life, dude. Like, maybe you shouldn't even be a carpenter. Maybe you should do something else.
Yeah,
It amuses
weirdo.
me. It will amuse the future version you guys are gonna love. Like, it's gonna be major.
It'll be the highlight reel. It's all right.
Yeah.
But that's what I love, I think, about the three of you. All three of you share a great sense of humor that is irreverent but loving about all of your characters, and I think that that's why this works. So, Becca, will you just quickly tell us about what the story is beyond Jesus, beyond Mary Magdalene getting a crush on Jesus? Can you tell us the story of the play?
Yeah, well, Mary's definitely the protagonist. She's a strong-willed teenage girl. It's a pretty universal story. Who moves to a new town with her dad, and we come to find out that they had to leave their previous town, Magdala, because she basically was given away in marriage and didn't want that marriage, and she got them banished from that town. But it's about her being new to town, trying to make friends. She falls in love with the boy next door, who just so happens to be Jesus. And it's about her figuring out her moral code. She goes on this really beautiful journey from selfishness to selflessness, which I think a lot of people go through when they're 16, and some people go through when they're 35, 50, 60, 70, you know. But it's just about her, figuring out what love is. She loves a boy, and by the end of the story, she's found a greater love for her community.
Yeah. What we know, I'm Jewish, so I know the Old Testament far better than the New Testament. You guys obviously know the New Testament really well, but Jesus, we know nothing of Jesus and Mary from their teenage years, from these years, right? So how did you create these characters? How did you sort of, backfill that in a fictional way that also is paying homage to what we do know of them?
Yeah. Cinco. Well, it started, when Cinco brought me on board, I think he had a draft of Act 1. So he really laid a lot of the pipe for the characters early on. But then we've been collaborating on them together. But, it's interesting from the get-go, I think when Cinco imagined Jesus, we're really wanting him to be this like young man who's finding his voice. And because of that, he's like kind of nerdy sometimes and kind of says the wrong thing sometimes. And then every now and then he says something so brilliant that it like belongs in the Bible, and because of that, and because he's kind of scruffy and like his hair's in his eyes, like he's every girl's dream, and because he's kind and he like thinks that women should be treated equally, which is really a novel concept at that point in time. But I think, Cinco, we've talked a lot about how to, the story isn't about Jesus losing his virginity, right? We don't want to tell a story that in any way doesn't honor the person that he was and what he represents. But at the same time, we're allowing him to be a kid and allowing him to be a human. And the same thing with Mary, who there's a lot that's put on her in different religions as, the prostitute that Jesus was kind to, as one of the women who was there for Jesus more than like almost as much as his own mother. And we're just trying to have her just be a young woman too, who's flawed. So I think Cinco, like, it's kind of like finding the balance of like finding the humanity of these characters, allowing them to be flawed people, but also not dishonor the characters that they are in the Bible.
Yeah, I think, there's like we leave Jesus when he's 12 in the New Testament. It says he grew in stature, by degrees, with God and man. And then we next catch him when he's 30. So it is a blank slate upon which you can write. But the fact that he sort of grew grace by grace or whatever, etc., to me indicates that the Jesus that we present at 16 doesn't know everything about who he is and what he's going to do, but he just feels like a lot like I did when I was 16, that I'm special, you know, and that I'm destined to do something great. I just don't know what it is yet, you know? And so we play with that a lot. And then there's a little fragment about Mary that says that she was the one out of whom Jesus cast 9 demons. And so I thought that was interesting. Like, and so Becca and I have talked a lot about, like, and Stephen too, we've all talked about, like, what are her demons and how do we represent those? And it is sort of the demon of self-obsession, or like only thinking of yourself, you know, that really is the one that is ultimately going to be cast out through this experience.
Yeah. Little teaser, my first teaser of the evening, 7 o'clock, those of you who are available, we're doing actually a benefit for Only Online, onlytheater.org benefit, and the woman who's going to be playing our Mary, Jalen Josie, is going to be singing Better Than This. Yes.
Wow. Nice.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I'm sorry, I ran out of time while we were in the green room before this happened, and I'll tell you.
Y'all are in for a treat. That girl
Amazing.
is
She's
incredible.
amazing.
But one of the things, I think that you, the two of you, do an amazing job walking the line really, like, securely between creating these fictional characters that everybody can connect to and keeping them related to the people we know from the Bible. So one of the things that I immediately fell in love with was Mary and Jesus are both rebels at that moment in different ways, and they each teach each other things. I love how Mary teaches Jesus, like, no, this was actually an earlier draft. Jesus being obsessed with the parables being about robbers because everybody loves robbers.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not what's important. So I sort of love that. So Stephen, was this also a similar, oh my God, I have to do this or I'm going to die? I mean, and how did you end up being part of the project?
Yeah, no, I got involved through my agent. Cinco and I are at the same agency, and they passed along the first. At that point, the first act was the only act that existed, right? And some demos from the show, and they said, "We'd love for you to have a meeting with Cinco," and first of all, I knew Bekah already, and I adore Bekah. I've known Bekah for a long time. We both kind of came up in the New York theater together and had, through Ars Nova, a really amazing theater. And so I was really excited that Bekah was attached to the project. And then, as I think your audiences will find out, Cinco's music for this show is just incredible, right? The tunes are just amazing. He has written the show with such a beautiful variety of songs in the show, but specifically Mary sings her face off in this show in a way that is extraordinary, right? And so, I think I heard, and it's the same one. I think I heard the demo for Perfect, and I was like, yes, how can I be in the room? How can I be a part of this, or meet Cinco and see if it's a good fit, right? And then to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying earlier, Cinco's just a good guy, right? He's a good guy. The meeting went really, really well. So immediately I sort of knew that that it was a project that I wanted to be involved with. I think one of the things that I had, one of the questions that I had at the beginning was just about where Cinco and Bekah were at in terms of faith with this show, right? I didn't really know Cinco. I knew Bekah and I knew Becca's relationship to religion. And I was a person who was raised in a church, but don't have a big relationship to the church now in my adult life. And sort of asked Cinco about that. And Cinco met me with a kind of like open honesty with that question and said, like, I'm not looking for this to be a piece exclusive to a specific set of people with specific beliefs. And that was music to my ears, right? And so just knowing that he and Bekah had intentions to write this to honor the people who really had a love and appreciation for Jesus in their lives and have them feel safe in that theater, but not have it be exclusively for that specific audience. And so I think once that became really clear to me, I was like, if anybody else gets attached to this, I'm going to kill them.
And they did, and he killed several people.
Yeah.
And that's how he got the gig.
I'm a murderer. Yep.
That's right. You haven't heard much from Diane Paulus lately, and
No, sadly. Yeah.
No. I want to get back actually to some of the things that you were just talking about, just in terms of the theater generally being a safe place for people of faith. But before I do, we've now referred a bunch of times to the music, which starting with Perfect and going all the way through everything that you've created is really stunning. As Stephen says, Cinco, tell us about the music for the show. What are, what are the various styles you're playing with? Where are they coming from? How are they, how did you find them?
Yeah, as Stephen and Becca have discovered, I have a very deep and abiding love of R&B, and specifically 80s and 90s R&B. And somehow when I came up with a concept, that is what clicked for me, musically. I think that's really important as a composer, like, what is this show going to sound like? And that's like one of the biggest questions. And as I sat down and wrote Perfect first, it fit. And I think that's because of the gospel roots that are in R&B. It felt right, but it's funny to have Jesus singing like Prince, and to have Mary or the Nazarene girls singing like they're in Vogue. I think it adds another dimension to the humor. And so that's really where it's in Vogue, it's TLC, it's Prince, it's P-Funk, Parliament, Funkadelic, the Beastie Boys. Our trio of villains sound like the Beastie Boys, and I'm a big Beastie Boys fan. And so I love this music so much, and hopefully that comes through in this. It's sort of an homage to that style of music as well. And it's been really fun, and then seeing it come to life. And when you have voices like Jaylen singing the songs, it's a dream come true for a composer. Absolutely.
You've done so in addition to a couple of showcases of music of the piece at Joe's Pub, as you were saying, in Los Angeles. I first encountered the show at the National Alliance of Music Theater Showcase a couple of years ago, and since then, Only Theater did a workshop in the fall, and then we just before the pandemic, we completed a workshop in Austin at Zach Theater. Tell us a little bit. Well, Stephen, why don't you tell us a little bit actually about your work in those workshops? What is your job? Your job as a director of a workshop is really different from directing a play. So tell us about how you organize the workshops and what you try to accomplish, and then I'm going to ask Becca and Cinco what they.
Yeah. I mean, workshops are a great time for us as the creative team to hear the draft that we have been collaborating on, with hearing the voices in our head and having Cinco sing the songs. Like, it's our first time to actually really see and hear the beginning of what we have, right? And so
you realize that Cinco should not sing the songs.
He should sing all the songs. Cinco should sing every single.
How dare you?
But a workshop is really about for me, trying to like cram the information in the actors' brains as quickly as possible and teach them the music as quickly as possible so that you can allow yourself to hear a really rough stumble, read, and sing through of the show, and then give yourself some time to respond to that and time for the creative team to say, okay, that scene didn't really work, but we think that that might be about, we don't quite know what the beats with the actors are. So like, then it's my job to kind of go in and teach those beats. But then we might have had like huge structural realizations during that read through. And that happens to us a lot, right? Of saying, oh my gosh, we think that this song should actually go here. Our workshop at the Only was really like, Cinco wrote a whole new song for the end of Act 1 in that workshop, right? And so it's time that
is Act 2 as well, right?
And
you brought
yeah, Cinco, did you write that? I can't remember. Did you write that there, or did you bring that in for that draft? For that
end of Act 2 or end of Act 2? I had written before,
but it was our first time hearing it.
But end of Act 1, I like wrote in like at the night. Yeah.
Totally. So you know, like,
that was crazy.
It's insane, but it is also, as Becca said, the time that the three of us actually get to be in the same room together is limited because of all the work that everybody's doing in their lives, right? And so specifically for this show, I've wanted to really try to maximize the time that we have and say, you know, like, even if this read through in front of the artistic director at the end is going to be a little rough around the edges, I'd rather us try to cram in and get some initial reactions into that reading. And then of course we have a ton of notes after the reading that we present and implement those when we can.
Yeah. So what about you, Cinco and Becca? What did you, where did you, you had come from, you had really never heard it all the way through before you came to, well, no, at Rhinebeck, no, you didn't have actors at Rhinebeck, did you, before?
No.
You did? So when you put it all together and heard it really through the first time at Only, what were the things like, oh, here's where we got to work, here's what we have to focus on? What were the things you wanted to address?
I think for me, because it was the first time I was hearing it all, this is always the case with musicals, is that there's just way too much book. So it's a lot of cutting. I think with book scenes, the scenes start really, really big and contain everything, and then they get whittled down, and then you see what you have, and then you explore a couple new things and new thoughts, and it kind of gets big again, and then you have to whittle it back down again. Mm-hmm. So I was mostly just reacting to where there was too much book, and then, you know, just really basic, like Mary's arc, and making sure that it's really clear in every moment what that is, and making sure the scenes are supporting what that arc is. So just like really basic, like playwriting 101 stuff. Yeah.
And yeah, I'll say that, I mean, I can maybe speak specifically to that new song because at Rhinebeck, you know, we had a week basically to work on stuff. And whoa, is everybody going away?
Nope, we see you. Can you hear?
Still okay?
Are you there?
Are you there? Are you okay?
I'm going to keep talking as if I am, but everybody else has disappeared.
You're a little frozen. We see you.
At Rhinebeck, I struggled to find a song. Let's see.
Oh, as poor Cinco's internet stabilizes.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh! So it looked like all of you went away one by one, but it was actually just me going away.
It was such a great, weird moment because we were all like, "We're here."
No, we're here. It's like It's a Wonderful Life or something.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Magical.
Did you ever lose me, or did I just lose you?
No, we never
had
lost
your voice, your face froze for a little bit, but it was a
okay.
freeze. Don't worry.
Anyway, so what I was saying that I struggled with this song for ending Act One, as Stephen and Becca both know, and I've written many versions of it, and I kind of felt like, oh, you know what? There shouldn't be a song, just because it was like too hard. I couldn't figure it out. So it's like, you know what, Stephen, we don't need a song there, do we? And then I think it was something about like the pressures of an upcoming reading, but also having all the actors there and being able to work through it and get to that moment really helped. Something clicked, and I was able to figure it out. And I think we now have the song that I think we're going to stick with. But that was really helpful, you know, because that clear. I don't think it would have unlocked without that.
Right.
And other than that, I'll say that I'm always watching the response of the actors as they're learning the songs. You know, sort of like how that's playing, and then I'm looking for tapping feet and things, you know, as the reading happens, to see like how is the music playing, or is this too slow, or is this, you know, verse necessary? You know, I like short songs, so all that stuff is very helpful.
Yeah, well, that Messiah song certainly is that was a huge leap forward. So what? We have a great question, Mark. I'm going to come to your question in a second, but before I do, what are you now sort of working on now that you're working on a new draft, and really there's no workshop between now. There's no workshop between now and we're sitting in a rehearsal room in January, knock on wood. So what's your focus? What are you going to be looking at specifically at that first read through in January and be like, did we fix that? Or did we address that?
I think one thing that we talked a lot about in Austin that we're continuing to talk about is just the tone. You know, the show takes place in a world where you get stoned if you break the law, right? Where lepers are banished, and they could lose their lives if they try and reunite with their families. The stakes are high, but we don't want the musical to turn into Handmaid's Tale. We want to honor that darkness without it becoming a dark musical. But as I think we learn, particular starting at Olney and then also at Austin, the Act One has a lightness, and Act Two does have a certain heaviness that we need to honor. I mean, the stakes become higher, and it becomes a little scarier for Mary. So I think we're still finding that tone, so that we're not all of a sudden in a different show, but we're honoring the world and the stakes of the world, I guess. We're kind of, I think, like specifically, we're pulling back on some of the comedy that was in Act Two. It's still like the same show, but you know, you don't want an audience to feel whiplash. Sometimes it's great to be frightened and then have laughter as a release, but you have to really modulate those moments that they're not odd, I guess.
Yeah. What about you, Stephen? What about you? You've ushered some really remarkable new musicals to the stage, or helped usher them. And one of the reasons why you're sought after is because you have a great dramaturgical brain about it. What are you going to be watching and thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think Becca hit on one thing that we're all collectively thinking about, and specifically about there's a promise that you make to an audience with Act One that you then have to deliver in Act Two and take it beyond that promise without feeling like you violated the thing that the audience responded to in Act One, right? And so I think we're all trying to kind of like figure out what that journey is and what that sort of arc is. And what I love about this piece is that it is in a beautiful way extremely palatable, right? Like it is seemingly really easy to sit back and enjoy, but there's actually some really beautiful nuanced ideas in there about gender, about faith, about relationships between fathers and daughters. You know, like there are all of these beautiful kind of like sub themes underneath there that I want to make sure are as rich and as nuanced as possible, so that it feels like an audience can kind of invest in all the multitudes of things in which this musical is trying to have a conversation about, right? While keeping the like fundamental entertainment level of it going and moving, right? And so like in a great way, I feel like our workshop at Only was our big kind of like structure workshop, right? And then we figured some things out and implemented them for the Zach workshop, which was afterwards, and we got to bring some more nuance, bring some more stake to some of it, bring some more danger to some of it. And I think it's more of that work of just kind of continuing to pay attention to the nuance of the storytelling. And I'm trying to get Cinco to write a production number where the Mary's demons come out and have a big dance break, but he won't write it.
Stephen.
If you had called
Really?
Yeah.
This is the appropriate place to
in front of
bring
everybody.
that back up?
In front of everybody. Yep.
Hey, let's have an all-out dramaturgy session. What else are you not happy about, Peter? I will totally support the 9 extra actors for the demons who come out at the end. But so speaking of audience investment, we have a great question from Mark. Will anything go over our heads if we're not familiar with the New Testament? So what do you say? I have my answer.
I think the answer is no, right? You know, I don't particularly have a nuanced understanding of the New Testament.
I'll attest to that.
And I follow along really beautifully.
Yeah, I think there's like extra little Easter eggs for those who are, pun intended, I guess, for those who are familiar. But yeah, I think you just have a basic knowledge of who this guy Jesus was and the time, and you can go along for the ride. Yeah.
If you've heard the phrase "turn the other cheek," you're going to be fine.
Right. Yeah.
If you haven't heard that phrase, come on back into the rest of society and enjoy it. But seriously, it does sort of come to sort of an important question. Is this a play for? This is just sort of a silly softball question because we all know the answer. Is this a play for people of faith, people of a particular faith, or people of no faith at all?
Everyone.
Yeah,
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Because really at its heart, it's about love is what I think it's about. And it's about the different types of love. And there's selfish love and there's selfless love and, you know, everything in between. And that's really what it's about. And I think that's the response we've gotten from the audiences who've seen it so far. You know, at NAMPT in New York City, I don't think that wasn't like a church-going audience. And they seem to really respond to it, you know, and I think it's bigger than that somehow. You know?
Yeah, I think it's about the lens that you bring into the show, right? Like whatever your specific lens is. If you come in with no knowledge of the Bible, you're watching a coming of age story about a girl who falls in love hard for this boy who maybe isn't giving her all the signs that she needs, right? And so you're watching it from that lens. And I think that's a satisfying way to watch it, right? For the people who do have more knowledge about their Christianity that they're bringing in, then they're like Cinco said, there are some Easter eggs that will play specifically to them, right? And I think that's something that we've tried to be very mindful about, right? It goes back to that first question that I asked Cinco about, like, who is the audience for this piece, right? And we are working on this piece to have as wide of an audience as possible. So come everybody.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of like Wicked and The Wizard of Oz, you know? Even if you haven't watched The Wizard of Oz recently, like we all kind of have a basic knowledge of it, and so we enjoy Wicked for that reason. And it's kind of, this is the Wicked of the Bible. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes, put it on a t-shirt.
I hope it's the Wicked for Only Theater Center.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the big reasons I wanted to work on it is just because, you know, I come from a really, I was raised Southern Baptist, and the bulk of my family, immediate and extended family, are very religious. And I am too in my own way, but in a way that is different from the way they are. But faith is so divisive now, and I'm just so sick of that. And I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to connect people as opposed to push people away from each other. And I think this show kind of does that. I get excited when I'm working on something where my liberal theater buddies can sit in an audience with my parents and watch the same show and get something out of it. You know, yeah. I'm really interested in those kind of things.
Yeah, that seems like a big part of your work. I mean, that seems like the driving force behind Take, right?
It's like all I ever do. It's like, Becca, try something else.
You're a uniter, not a divider.
Yeah. And I realize that's easier said than done, but I think a musical is a great opportunity to do that, you know, because it's so joyful, because the music Cinco has done is so freaking joyful. And because it is a comedy, and because it has heart, while also, like Steven said, taking serious issues seriously, it kind of invites everybody in. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, we all just saw this together. That's pretty cool, you know? And we all feel good coming out of it. We've tricked you. We've tricked you. I love tricking people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say, I may have blinders on this, but I don't think I'm wrong in saying that there is, that on the stage, thinking of liberal theater folks, there's real skepticism about faith. Why do you think? So is that the reason why we don't see as many works of faith as, not works of faith, that's the wrong way, works that are particularly friendly to people of faith on stage? Is that, am I right in saying that there's not as, that skepticism about faith is more prevalent on American stages than embrace of it?
I think so. I think, yes, that's true, but there's always writers trying to, I'm thinking of, can't say his name, Lucas Snaff.
Right.
He writes plays, Sam Hunter writes plays about Christian people from a different, I feel like there's always writers kind of trying to get in there in a new way. And, but it is because it's such a divisive issues, oftentimes Christian values are associated with hate now, that it's kind of, we kind of don't want to go there, you know? We're kind of not wanting to indulge that point of view. But what's so cool about what Cinco has done, since he had the original idea, is that it all comes back to the Bible, and people oftentimes are picking and choosing the Bible to justify their worldview. And we are literally talking about the Bible. We're going into the Bible and kind of looking at these stories in a new way. So we're kind of surpassing that and going back to the source, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, coming from, I'm fairly new to this stage, and coming from Hollywood, there's a real absence of stories about, people of faith. And I think often it's because they're nervous about doing it wrong, and offending people. And so I'm all for let's put these people, in stories and write stories about them, and they're imperfect, and it's okay. And not worry so much about, maybe somehow getting it wrong and one person gets angry or something. I don't know. Yeah. But this is a different story than that, really.
Yeah, it's been really beautiful for me to kind of listen to Becca and Cinco and to hear some of the things that the Bible has to say, which are profoundly beautiful, and about what it means to be alive, and what it means to be human, and what it means to have a love that's bigger than yourself, right? And so that I hear them telling stories about the Bible the way that I want the Bible to be interpreted, right? And filtered through humor and generosity and great humanitarianism. It's been really lovely for me to rehear some of these ideas kind of filtered through their perspective.
And we are starting our own religion, Becca and I now. And Stephen is our first acolyte. So
yes.
So
it
sign
only
up.
costs $2,000 to join, and just a little bit of blood.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm writing a check right now. I want to thank Bruce for his comment about giving us some thoughts about Mary Magdalene research. Let me just quickly go to Maureen's question. Is there anything about telling the story that scared you or scares you? It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you're like meeting the challenges with a lot of optimism. But
yeah, but I think there is some stuff. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about is there are aspects of the New Testament and the portrayal of Jesus's enemies that verge on anti-Semitism, you know, and we didn't want our show to be that at all. So we wanted to make sure that like some of the ideas of you know, the Jewish leaders at the time are portrayed as like really narrow-minded, and we wanted to make sure that we portray that like this is not you know, people weren't really stoned to death that much. That really didn't happen all the time, you know, and it wasn't really what it was meant to be. Or what we decided, let's portray it as like Nazareth is like a real hardcore place, you know, and where Mary came from in Magdala, maybe things were a little more gentle and forgiving, and which is, I think, generally how the law was enforced. So that's been something that we wanted to be careful, and has maybe been a little scary, I would say. We just want to get it right, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think as what Becca is saying, there's so much presumption once you say the word religion that everybody's on their guard. And this show, the very first moment you start watching it and listening to the music, it just says, drop your guard, everybody. We're all going to be fine. You're not, nobody's going to be hurt. Nobody's going to be angry. And so I think, you know, I salute that effort. I think so.
Yeah. It's not the Book of Mormon. I'm Mormon. I enjoyed that musical, but this the tone of this is not that, you know, it's not like holding up religion and mocking it. That's not our thing. Not at all.
But at the same time, there's like some ridiculous stuff in the Bible that we have some fun with exposing, you know?
Yeah.
In like a loving way.
In a loving way.
In a loving way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you all thread the needle, and you don't even. I was going to do something about the camel, but forget that. You thread the needle.
It's New Testament. You don't get that part.
I don't know that one. But I get Godspell. So
there you go.
Godspell, I know. No.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something I'm nervous about is, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but doing a new musical at this crazy moment. I'm sure you three have seen a lot of work, both on stage and in film and television, delayed. I know Stephen. I keep wanting to say The Big Chill, but you know that's not what I mean.
Be More Chill.
You're not the only one.
Be More Chill in London opened triumphantly just before the pandemic and cut short its run. Stuff being moved. You know, talk to us just generally about being working artists in different genres and places, trying to navigate this new world.
I mean, I'm dealing with something right now. You know, I have a TV show at Apple that's also a musical, and can
you tell us the name of it? I don't want to say it, but I'm excited.
It's currently called Schmigadoon.
Yes!
And it's about a modern day couple that they're stuck in a Rodgers and Hammerstein-y Music Man style musical. And it's a ton of fun. Cecily Strong from SNL is our lead. And we've got a lot of Barry Sonnenfeld of Men in Black and Stories directing. But anyway, I should actually be in Vancouver right now making the show. And we've got were postponed because of COVID, and Canada rightly is keeping Americans out of their country right now, and so that's all been pushed, and so I think we're going to start shooting in September now, but it's been, and there's going to be a lot of new protocols in place, which I'm sure Jason, you're dealing with, and everybody is, and because we want to take care of the people making art, and then with theater you have an added level of the people that are watching it. Yeah. But that's it's been a frustration. Obviously, like it's minor compared to what a lot of people are dealing with, but it's still something that every day I'm on the phone with producers and figuring this out.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, like Cinco and Bekah both work in other industries, and I mean, my life has just completely changed with all of this, right? And I think all that we can do at this moment is keep planning and keep strategizing and taking in the information as it comes, right? The 8016 will be my first day back in work, right? Since COVID started, my first day at work, right? Of course, there will be a lot of pre-production for this and a lot of work that happens from the safety of my computer, right? But I think all of our industries are based off of people being able to be together in close proximity, right? And in the theater, that also includes your audience, right? But I think, all we can do is strategize, plan, and take the information as it comes, right? I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that there is a vaccine that's able to be widely produced that will really help solve some of these problems. But there's still just so much that we don't know yet, right? Jason, I have a lot of sympathy for what you have to do in terms of planning for your theater and organizing the whole season and audience safety and everything. So yeah, I think everybody is just dealing with it in different ways. Bekah, I know you've been in a writer's room over Zoom. So like there are ways in which industries are adapting as much as they can, but the actual people to people part of it is a challenge.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Becca.
No, just for me, the hardest thing has just been living in the unknown. I'm just by nature, I'm a planner, and I'm sure we all, when we like to kind of know what our lives are like. But it's all, I've had moments of despair where I'm sitting down I feel like I had it when I sat down to work on the latest draft of this. It kind of feels like, why am I doing this? When is this gonna even happen? And the same with the Zoom writers room. We're also waiting for Canada to let us gross people into their country to film there too. There's this feeling of like, what's the point? But I know that's not me, and I know that, and I've been able to work through that feeling, because I know that people are always going to want, particularly uplifting content after all of this. And that is my job. That is my role in this. I'm not going to make a vaccine. I'm not going to solve this virus. I'm not going to make it go away, but I can be there on the other side with things that I've made that will make people feel good. So, yeah.
Shit. I really thought you were making the vaccine.
I tried, and then I got bored, and then it was like, this is hard, and it's like,
Well, and creating a new religion has taken up a lot of our time.
Yes.
So,
You've given me a great segue for us to sort of begin to close this out, and I want to, before we do, thanking Los Angeles for watching, and St. Louis for watching, and Austin, hey Mark, Sarah for watching, and everybody.
Hey, Mark.
See you. Or not see you, but great to know that you're seeing us. Ha ha ha. Yeah. What? I sound like a stupid producer when I say this kind of thing, but I really feel like the more what what we have gone through in this country in the past 12 weeks between the twin pandemics of coronavirus and racism have made it feel like this is a musical that we need more than anything else I could possibly think to create. I never got a call from me saying, all right, well, maybe we'll move it to this date, or maybe I'm like, no, this needs to be the first thing out because of what solace and healing that this can provide. So
Yeah.
I guess the last question to you all is, how have the experiences of the past 12 weeks changed your feelings as you're looking forward to this? It can be as general an answer as like, I feel like it's going to be really good, or has it changed your thoughts about what the next step is for AD16? Save the hardest for last.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, look, I think everything that's happened has caused me to do a lot of soul searching too, you know, and like, what changes do I need to make in my life? How can I be a better ally, and how can I use the privilege that I have in my position to lift other people up and do my part? And, you know, and it feels weird to say that this show is part of that, but I do feel I love that Jay Len is our lead, and that we have this strong young African American woman as the lead of our show, and that I feel good about. But I also feel like I want to do more, and there's more I can do, and just it's what's in here, but it's also just I've had my time, and I keep on saying to my, you know, all the writers that I know, it's like, I am a middle-aged white man who's had a lot of success in this business, and my time is done. And it's really time for me to step aside and do everything I can to lift other people up. And I really want to do that. And so I don't know how much that has to do with AD16, but that's kind of where I am. But I am really proud of AD16, and that it is in some ways that, you know, and trying to let other voices be heard through the songs that I'm writing and the stories I'm telling.
Yeah, I mean, I love the show more than ever, and I feel like it slots right into what the world needs. But the thing that just popped into my head is that, you know, a lot of people, like back in the day, people justified slavery via the Bible. Like, God said we should have slaves. And what we're doing with our show is, a big part of the show is this leper colony where these lepers have been banished because, well, the Bible says that you got to banish the lepers. And we're re-examining these things that like ostracize communities. And so in a way, like, we're kind of unpacking something that's at the base of what's tearing apart the country right now. And I love everything that's come to the surface. And I'm excited that this show kind of is having this conversation that so many of us are now having too, in a more public way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. I cannot wait for us to be in the same actual room together, working on this marvelous show. I'm so proud of it already. For those of you interested in hearing some of the music from the show, as I already mentioned earlier, at 7 o'clock tonight, you can catch Only Onward Comes Home, a free benefit that is going to feature some music of shows that we've done before, as well as music from AD16. So I think that you're going to enjoy that a ton. That's at www.onlytheater.org/benefits to join. Becca, Cinco, Steven, stay safe. Thank you so much for being part of this.
You're welcome.
In touch with you again.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you guys.
Nice to see you. Take care now.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.